we'll do that. Well, throw a couple of Kings questions at him, maybe.
Yeah.
Sprinkle that in at the end, and he's going to join us now. It's Anthony Slater covering the Oklahoma City for The Athletic with the NBA Finals Game 1 tonight, Thunder and Pacers. Anthony, how you doing, man?
I am good. How are y'all doing?
Doing great. Oklahoma City treating you well? Are you safe?
Good enough. I mean, it was like a 4-hour delay getting in because of tornadoes, like knocked power out of the Oklahoma City airport. I'm sure you guys saw the Pacers had to get diverted to Tulsa. So it's this time of year, man. You know, obviously I used to live here for 7 years. It's just once every 2 days is some like severe storm, but generally I'm fine. My family made the trip out here. So
awesome.
I, more than the rest of the NBA media world, I actually don't mind that the finals is in Oklahoma City.
You're used to it. So like it's different. It's different when you don't freak out about, like sirens and weird stuff happening, right?
And just indirect flights and lack of late night food spots and everything else that us bougie NBA media people don't complain about.
Problems.
Yeah, last year it was Dallas, Boston, and you can already hear people grumbling about not even just OKC, by the way, it's OKC Indy. When New York was close, right? New York was very close.
I feel like it's the only sport where people are so concerned about the market size of the teams in the finals.
Mm-hmm. So LeBron going to Cleveland, man, I had to do like 3 or 4 straight, Cleveland finals when he was in Miami. The people that were covering those finals at the time, how about some Miami finals? That sounds. I'm sure this is what everybody wants to hear, right? Us just talk about which cities we want to work in.
It's so awful that you have to travel for work to that city and cover basketball. Oof.
Yeah.
No, you recently wrote about Cason Wallace embracing his role, and that's something we've talked a lot about with the Kings, and trying to find players who are going to do the little things, do the things on the margins. How have the Thunder gone about establishing that culture where was Cason Wallace, like the 10th overall pick, wants to come in and be like, okay, I'm going to be a just 3-and-D guy, and that's it.
Yeah, I mean, it starts at the top with Sam Presti, not only, laying this foundation of like there's like a lack of individual, I guess, promotion just from the franchise. Walk around the Thunder Arena. It's every picture is like a team huddle where their hands are in, or a picture of the city of Oklahoma on the side of the arena. It'll say like team, family, committed. Like it's just and he's very strategic in that way. Some would say controlling, and but he also, and I think this is post Durant Westbrook era, which I remember I remember Kevin at the time wondering about they don't do bobbleheads, they don't do like individual celebration type nights, and that was the thing at the time. But I think the way Sam has rebuilt this version of the Thunder is going and finding guys. Like he not only scouts the player, he scouts the person probably more than any front office executive I've been around. And with Wallace, what you're mentioning, and I talked to Alex Caruso about that, but he's a Dallas kid. He went to this like really famous Dallas high school where they play defense. They're very committed to team basketball. Sam knows his parents well. They live in Dallas. And I think part of the drafting of Cason Wallace was the belief that he could come in and would be willing to accept that type of role, despite the fact that he averaged, 19 points per game and was the Texas high school basketball player of the year. He was the point guard at Kentucky, but, he comes in and willingly does it. And I think that's a personality trait of his.
When you're looking at the personality traits, it feels like they go around and they find all of these players that have that same shared thing. But I think it's predicated around the big three that they've developed. How impressed are you with the way that, we all expected Shea to be great in the playoffs, but that Jalen Williams has become like that really second option, and that Chet Holmgren has become that second/third option, and really given them like 3 players that they can rely on every single night for scoring?
Yeah, that was the question last year. I covered their second round series. They were the 1 seed. I think people think like this year was this explosion, and obviously it was from a record standpoint, right? 68 wins, but they were the 1 seed in the West in last year's playoffs and lost to Dallas in a 1-4 matchup. It was a good series, 6 games. Shea had a really bad foul at the end. You guys might remember on PJ Washington that lost in the series. But the problem in that series was Chet Holmgren and Jalen Williams weren't ready to be number 2, number 3 scorers. And they're just a year older. And Jalen Williams spent his offseason and this season trying to expand his game for this specific reason. You know, they're winning 68 games, so you can say, hey, tonight go out and take some shots that, you know, might not be the most efficient, but work on some of the stuff that's going to matter late in the year because you're 12 games up in the West, right? So he spent a lot of his season doing that, and he did make that leap, right? He was an all-star for the first time this year. He was all-NBA, and you've seen it in these playoffs. That's not to say he's, you know, a perfect number 2 scorer or some like ascending, you know, guaranteed number 2 type guy. Honestly, you could say in this series, Siakam might be more established in that realm, but he's better than he was last year. And with him being better than he was last year, with Chet Holmgren, I think finding his role a little bit better. He's healthy. He's hitting the 3, you know, with a little bit more consistency. And then let's be honest, why did they lose the Dallas series last year? Josh Giddey was a massive minus. Well, they flipped Josh Giddey for Alex Caruso. I mean, that's one of the trades of the summer. And in a playoff environment, that's, you know, instead of a weak link, you have some like defensive ace off the bench. They find Hartenstein because they had cap space, and they were very specific about that fit, and that was to solve their rebounding, you know, I guess interior issues that they had last year. And they win not just because they have these guys that have become 2 or 3 scorers, but they're extremely deep. And to be honest, they win on the defensive end. I don't think there's some unbelievable offense. They just kill you in transition, turnovers, and they just like spook your offense.
Talking with Anthony Slater. He's in Oklahoma City covering the finals for The Athletic. The Athletic or the New York Times? Or both?
Both, whatever you want to say. They've like changed the like link. So actually like the links at nytimes.com. I was told today I wrote a story about Presti and Steve Kerr, a trade from 2007. And it was in the New York Times print today. So both, I guess you could say.
Wow, look at this. New York Times author and Anthony Slater joining us now.
I'll take it.
We've seen Oklahoma City make quick work of Memphis. They go to 7 with Denver, and then they went and made quick work of the Minnesota Timberwolves.
Yeah.
Do you expect this Indiana series to be more like the Timberwolves and Memphis series, or do you think it's going to be more like that Denver series?
I'd pick it in 5. I feel a little bit like, you know, I covered Minnesota Warriors in the second round, and I thought Minnesota was a little inflated. Like the reputation coming out of that series was a little inflated because it was like they beat basically a non-playoff team. Like the Warriors without Steph Curry are not a playoff team. And I feel a little bit like maybe it's a little disrespectful to the Pacers, but it's like I feel like they just played the East. Like they were in the East. It's just a, you know, worse conference, worse opponents. They do some tricky stuff. It's going to be fast-paced. I think it's going to be fun brand of basketball, but I just think they are a B- version of the Thunder. They're deep like them. They play fast. They got some stuff, but I just don't think the talent's there. I think I went to a March game between these two teams. Holmgren was out. Hartenstein went out in the first half. The Thunder didn't even have a big, and they beat them by 30. You know, Halliburton couldn't create separation. He was going against Dort Wallace, you know, Caruso. Like he has not faced that type of waves of defenders with, you know, rim protection behind them and no weak link for them to attack, right? Carlisle's a sharp coach, but part of the problem when you attack the Thunder is like even their star point guard is 6'6" and like one of the top steals guys in the league. Like you don't pick on Shea. Right. So I see mechanically and schematically trouble for the Pacers. I will say, like, if they get tonight, Denver extended that series against the Thunder because they can't remember them coming back from 13 down. Gordon hits the 3. The Thunder just gacked that one away. If the Pacers are able to come in tonight against a Thunder team on a long layoff, maybe rusty, and get tonight, we could be talking about a long series. But if they just wipe them out the first 2, I think we're talking 4 or 5.
Yeah, it does seem like that series. But what is it that Indiana brings outside of Ty? I mean, because that's going to be the biggest thing. Yeah. I don't think this is just going to be a lay down series. I think it'll go closer to 6, but that's just me. But how do you think, what is the pathway if there is a narrow pathway for Indiana to beat that team?
Yeah, I mean, their role guys are going to have to hit threes, right? That's like every series now in the NBA. It's like you get a hot series or a cold series from Lou Dort. You get a hot series or a cold series from Nesmith and Nembhard. Like that's obviously huge. I think Siakam had, he was the East Finals MVP, right? I know that was kind of like a controversial vote, but I think he had like a 43-point game. Now he attacked mismatch. Like that Knicks series was about Brunson and Cat and, kind of like Carlisle scheming up to put them in action. And I think Siakam really benefited from that. Whereas in this series, like he's going to have good defenders on him pretty much the entire time because the entire Thunder team are good defenders. But if he could just like I saw him in 2019. He's a proven playoff scorer. In that finals with Toronto, he had some huge games. So him having a huge, like, they got to get one of these two first ones, I think, and that lay out whatever formula you want for that. I am curious because there's a lot of talk right now locally with like the whole NBA media scene here about the Pacers pace. People, 7 seconds or left, 4 seconds or left. A lot of that is Siakam in transition and the way Halliburton hits ahead. But the Thunder's equally, I think the Thunder has a higher pace in the playoffs. Like, they speed you up. They want to play that style. So, maybe it's strength on strength, and that lessens some of what the Thunder does to other teams. I'm curious to see that. But, you could tell which way I'm leaning in this series for sure.
Anthony Slater in Oklahoma City covering the Thunder for the finals. Game 1 tonight against between the Thunder and Pacers. Coverage begins at 4:30 right here on ESPN 1320.
Can I ask you guys something? Because there's a lot of talk. Yeah, there's a lot of talk here for like the NBA actually is here, right? It's the finals, so like there's a lot of NBA people, and they are putting on a brave front of like enjoying the freshness of this series, the new stars. I do think the style of basketball is going to be interesting, fast paced, deep, sharing the basketball. You guys, are not in market. This is not like teams that you guys follow on a normal basis. Like, are you excited for this series? Like, because I think the ratings probably are not going to be that good because of markets and everything we've talked about. But like, are you pumped to turn on Pacers Thunder? Game 1 tonight.
I am. I think it's two fun and young, exciting teams. Like, I think the Thunder's defense is stifling, which might make this a little bit boring. But I also think that Indiana's going to have one of those games where they just don't miss, and they'll make the Thunder look mortal for a night, just the same way that Minnesota did one night. And so I think this is going to be fun. I mean, great personalities. I like that we're seeing the changeover right now from the old guard to the new guard, with the young players stepping up, guys like Halliburton, guys like Shea getting all the spotlight, even Brunson or Ant-Man. I think that the league needed this, and I like that this is we're going to have the 7th different NBA championship in 7 years. It got a little old. I mean, covering Warriors Cavs for 4 or 5 straight years. It was just like, okay, this is boring. What are we doing again? It's the same group. So I'm here for it.
I'm really excited because it doesn't feel like it's just Tatum versus another star or whatever it would have been. It's obviously Shea and Tyrese Halliburton are the two stars in this series, but we've talked so much about the role players. Like, my first question was about freaking Case and Wallace. So that's what's exciting for me is A, the different styles, but B, the fact that there's more to talk about than just like, what does this mean for X player's legacy? Like, I'm so tired of that. So yeah, for me, and it sounds like for people in the chat, it's exciting and refreshing for sure.
Yeah, I think the league needs it, right? I mean, there's all this talk about, LeBron and Steph fading out, and the need for people to take the mantle, stars and teams to step into the spotlight. Well, you need the spotlight to generate, more spotlight, essentially. And this is a chance. If Shea has a huge finals, you're talking about one of the better seasons in recent NBA history by a player, right? MVP, followed by, potentially finals MVP for a 68-win team where he, like all the statistic, outlier. So I'm not sure it'll be viewed that way. I'm not sure if they dominate the Pacers in the finals, people are going to be talking about some historic team and historic season from Shea, but it's at least the start of a conversation of, hey, is this mini dynasty on the way? Is this, Shea becoming an all-time great type thing? So could be good for the league.
I want to talk about finals MVP here for a second, because I assume if Oklahoma City wins, it would be Shea Gilgeous-Alexander as finals MVP. But if an Andre Iguodala thing happened, like in 2015,
Caruso is everywhere in this series, though.
You think that's who would be the MVP if it's not Shea in a Thunder win?
No, probably not Jalen Williams, because we're talking stats, right? I think we're in a statistical world where even if Caruso has a good series, it's going to be like 4 steals, like 8 points, 3 rebounds, and wow, he really took the Siakam matchup. Like, he was a big story when he guarded Jokic in Game 7, but if they had voted MVP of that Denver series, he wouldn't have been in the top 6. Sure. So I mean, what Shea is so good at is like he just scores 30 every game. He just
insane.
Always scores 30. So I almost see no world where he is not the MVP because I just think he's going to average, his usual 30. I mean, unless Jalen Williams just explodes, but that's the only other way I would see it.
Slater, we don't get to keep you all day, but I wanted to ask you about what's happening here in Sacramento. You, of course, live here locally, and then fly all over and go to other places. not always Kings games. But Doug Christie, Scott Perry, the BJ Armstrong edition, the coaching staff additions. What are just your general thoughts on what's happened so far here as the Kings look to rebuild their front office and their coaching staff?
We'll see. A lot of work to do, right? And the work is coming. In late June and early July. I mean, the no first round pick off that season is obviously tough for them. They are more transparently than you typically see teams, and you guys know this, are talking about the lack of point guard play, right? I was surprised that Sabonis just went straight up in his press conference post-game. And Doug Christie, I believe, basically right after the final buzzer when they lose to the Mavericks, is like, well, the lack of a point guard was a really big problem. And I mean, obviously Monty McNair's gone within about 10 minutes of that comment. So they've got to solve that, right? You got to imagine that's agenda item number one. And I know this is the type of stuff you guys kind of analyze on a daily basis. It would seem that the DeRozan contract number would be the path to, maybe finding, the type of mid-level type point guard that could help. If it's, I'm not saying it's Dennis Schroeder, but maybe that level of guy that could stabilize and table set better. But it's also a tough fit because it's hey, come in and be the point guard, but you're playing next to Levine who needs the ball. Your center Sabonis is, needs his dribble handoff actions and all of his touches. And I guess to your point, I can see Scott Perry and his group having a good tenure here, but it's there's a lot of renovation to be done. And you could give Sam Presti this job or name, whatever the hottest GM on the market that you could name. I don't think he's just building a contender within the next 12 to 24 months. I think it's a rebuild project within an organization that we all know doesn't necessarily have the patience to rebuild. So
yep,
it's the perpetual problem, isn't it?
It is.
It's a vicious cycle. Anthony, you've been super generous with your time. We really appreciate it. Enjoy the game tonight. Hopefully we get a long series and an enjoyable series. You're covering the Oklahoma City Thunder for The Athletic and the New York Times. It's Anthony Slater, everybody. Thanks, man.
There we go. I appreciate the outro. Even got the New York Times. Appreciate it, fellas. I will see y'all later.
Thanks. Anthony Slater, one of the best.
Good dude,
Warriors,